the early 1990s, Electra Motor Division and General Electric embarked on a horsepower race to see who could produce the most powerful locomotive with the then new emerging AC traction locomotive market. AC traction was shown to pull better than DC current, and with the drastic increase of railroad traffic and the strongest locomotives at the time only clocking in a mere 3,600 horsepower, the race was on. EMD was first to the punch by taking the then new and promising SD80MAc and added an isolated or whisper cab from the SD60i, added self-steering HTCR radial trucks, longer fuel tanks, a new and advanced 5,000 horsepower engine, and the most physical difference, an all-new radiator and log hood design. The first locomotive that emerged from the horsepower race was EMD's very own SD80MAc, with GE's response being the even more powerful AC6000. EMD produced two prototypes in late 1995, numbered EMD X8000 and 8001, and then went to Conrail for testing. Conrail was vitally impressed, so impressed with the power of the 80MAcs, they ordered 28 units, including the two demonstrators.
I'll take your entire stock!
The Chicago and Northwestern Railway placed an order for 15 locomotives, but after the merger with Union Pacific, it was canceled. Canadian Pacific placed an order as well, but it was changed to the SD90MAc.
Between 1995 and 1997, and with a hefty price tag of $2,1994, a total of 30 SD80s were produced for Conrail, 28 at the former Pennsylvania Railroad Juniata shops, the two demonstrators in London, Ontario. These brutes proved to be the most advanced and powerful locomotives to serve the Big Blue, with many crews noting the smooth ride, quiet cab, and sheer pulling power of the locomotive, earning their nickname as the Conrail Cadillacs. They served Conrail right up until it split with CSX and Norfolk Southern, with CSX getting 13 and NS getting the majority of the fleet with 17 units. Conrail was originally going to order 120 more of the 80s, but after the split, the plans were canned.
Glad to have you on board, Railfan AC. NS put the 80MAcs on coal duty, working hard and barely breaking a sweat. CSX's fleet of 80MAcs were usually seen pulling large manifests, coal drags, and speedy intermodals, serving CSX well, and was even leased to Ferromex to help with their motive power shortage. CSX numbered these units 800 to 812, and after the GE Gevos came along, they were renumbered 4590 to 4602. Two notable incidents involving CSX SD80s involved CSX 806 and CSX 4593, formerly CSX 803. Here we can see CSX SD80MAc number 806 having fallen into the Cumberland Shops turntable pit, and CSX 4593 almost nosediving into the turntable pit at Russell, Kentucky. Other than these two incidents, these engines were hard-working, reliable locomotives. However, in 2014, CSX 4594 was scrapped following a derailment and was being used as a parts donor. Later that year, CSX decided to trade all 13 of its SD80s to Norfolk Southern, with Norfolk Southern giving NS 12 SD40s, which would later be rebuilt into the SD40-3s. Now, with all the SD80s together, they served the Thoroughbred Railroad for 6 more years, until sadly in 2020, all 30 SD80s were put into storage due to NS's implementation of PSR. Canadian Pacific bought 9 off of NS to be used as spare parts, and EMD, now Progress Rail, bought the remaining 21. In 2021, scrapping commenced on all of the SD80s, and even though many historical societies and museums tried desperately to save the Conrail Cadillacs, by January of 2022, all 29 SD80s have now been scrapped, with one barely hanging on in CP custody. A tragic end to one of EMD's most beloved locomotives. The CSX SD80MAcs are powered by the powerful 5,000 horsepower 20-cylinder EMD V2710 G3B ESI engine with a 2-stroke cycle, a turbocharger, and the ability to air start. Max RPM for these units is 904 and the minimum is 200. Cooling of this massive engine was handled by 3 2-speed 52-inch cooling radiator fans. These units have an EMD TA22 CAAA main alternator and 6 Siemens 1TB 2830 AC traction motors, with 3 mounted each on 2 HCCR-2 radial self-steering trucks. The SD80MAcs come with 45-inch wheels and 83/16 gearing, which allows these massive engines to get up to a pretty speedy 75 miles an hour, making this the second fastest locomotive we have covered on the series, with the F40PHs being 20 miles an hour faster. These units come with 6 traction motor blowers and 2 Wabco 2-stage 4-cylinder EPIC 3102 air brakes. The electrical side of things were handled by 2 LMUD 660 batteries with 32 cells and an average rating of 660 amps per hour. The 80Macs have a starting tractive effort of 185,000 pounds of force and 155,000 pounds of force of continuous tractive effort. The most amazing thing about the 80Macs, in my opinion, is hands down the chemical toilet. These locomotives are 80 feet 2 inches long, 15 feet 11 inches tall, and 10 feet 3.5 inches wide, and with these units clocking in at a whopping 210 tons, this easily makes it the biggest locomotive we've ever covered on the series, but not quite the heaviest, with that title going to its competitor, the AC6000. The 80s carry 5,800 gallons of fuel, 510 gallons of lubricant, and 342 gallons of coolant. The 80Macs are equipped with a wide range of horns, with the most common being the RS3L from its Conrail days and the K5LA. Here are some examples. The SD stands for Special Duty, 80 for the model number, M for the wide body cab, and AC for the AC traction. Fun fact, the 80Macs were the only other EMD locomotive to have a 20-cylinder engine, with the first one being the SD45s. One CSX SD80MAc 4590, originally Conrail 4100, was given the title of Spirit of Benning. CSX 6402 ex-Conrail 4128 was actually one of the original demonstrator units, EMD 8000, which was later given to Norfolk Southern and renumbered as NS 7228, with EMDX 8001 being given to NS and renumbered as NS 7216. The SD80s represented a time when horsepower was king. These massive locomotives proved their worth as worthy competitors to GE's AC6000s, but ultimately in the end, GE's monster engine won out, even in the preservation field, with GE CX6001 in preservation. A rather unfortunate and unfitting end to one of EMD's most beloved and brutish locomotives. However, derivatives of the 80Macs live on, with the SD80 being used in mining operations in Brazil to the GT50AC heavy freight engine of India. The 80Macs, while being extinct, have engines that carry on its legacy, literally still rolling. I really hope you guys enjoyed this long-awaited locomotive. This engine was recommended way back in my third video of the series on the AC44CWs. Engines of CSX is honestly a pretty fun series to work on, and with support from people like Amtrak Guide 365, Trains 21, and others that have done similar Engines of type videos, I'm all too happy to say that Engines of CSX is back. Thank you all for your support. Leave your comment down below and a question for a Q&A video. Thanks for watching, and see you out there on the hot iron.